carbon net zero by 2070. This was the ambitious project announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the COP26 summit in Glasgow in 2021 as India joined the climate change fight. The idea is very simple. Embrace fuel types which are clean and dispose of those fuel types which add to the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which means do away with diesel, try and do away with petrol, and look at green hydrogen instead. Look at electric vehicles instead. India is the world's third biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, only behind China and the United States of America. In 2020, India alone emitted 2,302 million tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The figure is much, much less when compared to the neighboring China, but still remains a big worrying sign. It remains a worrying sign because we know what happens in Delhi every winter. Now, one of the biggest contributors to air pollution is diesel. Your generators, your tractors, your trucks, even your heavy passenger vehicles, your SUVs, they all run on diesel. It's no secret that diesel discharges the highest quantity of emission when compared to its peers, and it is the most hazardous to our health as well. A report in 2019 by the International Council on Clean Transportation, along with the George Washington University, revealed that nearly 49,000 deaths in India in 2015 were because of emission from diesel vehicles. That is almost 66% of all pollution deaths in the country. India has acknowledged the threat diesel vehicles possess, both to the human body and to nature. And efforts are being made not just from the government side, but also from the public to ensure that diesel vehicles are not hitting roads. In 2012, for example, 14,40,669 cars were sold across India. These are diesel cars. Fast forward 10 years and that number has come down to 7,16,730. See the figures and you will realize the sale of diesel vehicles has nearly halved in 50 years. It used to be 50% of our entire car sales. It's now down to 18%. It has always been a petrol versus diesel battle in the Indian car market, with CNG playing a third fiddle to them. But the rise of electric vehicles, especially in the past couple of years, is another big reason why there are lesser diesel cars in the market. In 2022 alone, nearly 12 lakh units of electric vehicles were sold in India, a sharp spike from the numbers a year before. The Indian government has also made an effort to slowly but steadily take out diesel cars from the roads. A proposal was made to ban four-wheeler diesel cars by 2027. And in this regard, the remarks by Road and Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari were very crucial. Speaking at an event, Mr. Gadkari said that diesel vehicles are the biggest cause for pollution. And if the government does not act on it, he will personally send a proposal to the Finance Ministry to levy an additional 10% GST on diesel vehicles. He also reportedly said, bye-bye diesel, while also warning the auto manufacturers, if you don't do things on your own, we will impose a tax and make you do it. Immediately after his remark, auto stocks tumbled, with tensions amongst the group that a ban on diesel is on cards. Fearing a backlash, the union minister took back his original remarks and said that no proposal to impose additional tax on diesel vehicles is on the agenda. Is today's development sign of India becoming diesel-free? Only time will tell. But first, let's listen in to what Mr. Gadkari said.
2014 के बाद जो 52% डीजल की गाड़ियां थी वो 18% पे आई है। अब जैसे ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री बढ़ रही है, डीजल की गाड़ियां नहीं बढ़नी चाहिए। आप ही आपके लेवल पर निर्णय करिए ताकि डीजल कम से कम हो, और अगर नहीं हुआ तो फिर मैं सरकार को, वित्त मंत्री को ये रिकमेंड करूंगा कि डीजल ज्यादा पोल्यूशन कर रहा है, इसके ऊपर 10% टैक्स एडिशनल लगाना चाहिए।
Okay, so there has been a U-turn since that statement was made. But is a pollution tax on diesel cars an idea whose time has come? Mr. Sorabjee is editor of the Autocar India. He's joining us on the broadcast. Kishore Subramania is a financial expert, and Dhar Gupta is member Right to Breathe. Thank you all very much for joining us here on the broadcast. Let me start with you, Mr. Sorabjee. Do you think it's an idea whose time has come? We already know that the sale of diesel cars in the country has dipped significantly. It used to be about 50% of all cars sold in India some 10, 12 years ago. That has dipped to 18%. But the fact is that diesel vehicles are still doing enough and more harm. That is what study after study is telling us. What was so wrong in what Mr. Nitin Gadkari said?
Sorry, Shreya, I'm of the complete opposite opinion. I think the time has actually gone. For the simple reason, today's diesel cars are as clean as petrol equivalents, especially from a BS6 phase 2 point of view. The two bogies, which are NOx and PM, have been, taken care of by diesel particulate filters, NOx traps, all that sort of thing. Secondly, diesel share has gone down from 53 to 18%. So I don't understand why this vilification of diesel continues. From a CO2 perspective, which is the bigger issue of global warming, not about the pollution only at what happens in NCR and pockets like that. Here we are talking about an existential crisis of global warming caused by CO2. A diesel is far better than a petrol by giving 25% more efficiency. So I think we need to get this kind of vilification, which sounds cool. It's very a great thing to do. Today, a modern diesel, unfortunately, to me, is actually a solution in the transition to EVs. Because of what it just basically emits less CO2. Today, engines are so clean. The fundamental pollutants are really becoming less of an issue. You've got other issues like brake dust and things like that, or rubber, let's say particles from the tires, which add to PM 2.5 or whatever, far more than what's coming out of the engine. The engines are super cleaned up right now, including the diesel, but yet they keep on beating this diesel drum without people even knowing what the actual facts are. So I'm sorry. I think, this is once again, it makes for great headlines. It makes for, for the news channels to go crazy about it and say, kill diesel, without knowing the actual facts. And why I get worked up about it, because of CO2 is public enemy number one today. And that a diesel can do far better than any petrol engine. So I think we need to get the facts on board before just trying to, talk about a modern diesel being dirty. Yes, the older diesels are dirty, and that is the root cause of the problem. We're talking about pre-BS6 diesels, which is diesels before 2020. Those definitely do have a pollution issue, not a CO2 issue, because again, they are inherently more efficient. So a modern diesel to me actually is a solution in this transition to as we go towards for electrification.
Okay, Mr. Sorabjee, but then why is the government led by Nitin Gadkari pushing for diesel to be out? You're saying the vilification is unnecessary. It is not rooted in facts. You're saying modern diesel cars are absolutely clean, but this is the government's push.
Yeah, but they don't know the facts. Obviously, there's a push for biofuels, which again is understandable. But don't forget, biofuels are not efficient. And what forgets is, what about the consumer? You're making the consumer pay a big fat petrol bill every month for what are fundamentally inefficient engines. Today, a modern turbo petrol gives you around 7-8 kilometers per liter, burning a hole in everyone's pocket, putting more CO2 in the atmosphere, adding to your import bill. No one thinks of that. These are facts. I mean, everyone knows today, I'm sure even a diesel is more fuel efficient than a petrol. We all know that. We need to take that on board. And less going in means less coming out. So basically, you emit less, you pollute less, or in terms of CO2. So these are just absolute facts. And it's not just Mr. Gadkari, it's happened all over. It's a very cool thing for politicians to whip diesel. This doesn't happen only in India, it happens everywhere. Led by Dieselgate, Volkswagen, it kind of painted diesel with one complete brush. It just tarnished the image completely. So that's really what the reality is. And the technical experts are right now too scared to speak out because they get hammered. So that's really the reality. I mean, the truth is, unfortunately, you ask any person who knows the facts, knows the technical advantages and disadvantages, that frankly, diesel. I'm talking about BS 6.2. We are right now in a 6.2 phase. That means a very high level of emission technology. We've got, we had LNTs in earlier diesel cars, the smaller ones. They're gone, and now we've got SCR with AdBlue, which is really the cleanest form of, or the cleanest way to clean up diesel and its pollutants. Every diesel car has that. That's led to other problems of DPF issues and all that. That's a separate thing, not about pollution, more about reliability. But the point is, and the diesel sale is any case coming down. Just let regulations do their job. I mean, if you can't meet, it's very tough to meet these diesel regulations at a cost-effective way. A lot of people have automatically exited. So you've seen the whole Volkswagen group has exited. Maruti is out of diesel. Honda is out of diesel. It's just a natural way to do it. But to kind of whip diesel, even after making them meet really stringent norms where they are clean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Dhar Gupta, would you want to come in here? We understand that the government is making a big push for electric vehicles, maybe rightly so. The aim is by 2030, India's share as far as electric vehicles is concerned should be some 32%. That's an ambitious goal given the fact that right now, as we were just putting it out in our graphics, India's electric vehicle share is less than 2%. So that is not happening. But respond to what Mr. Sorabjee is saying. He's saying that you are unnecessarily making a villain out of diesel, given the fact that the BS 6.2 vehicles are absolutely clean. The fact is that the current diesel vehicles you are getting and engines you're getting are absolutely clean, perhaps cleaner than petrol as well. Then why villainize diesel? Would you want to respond to that?
Yes, absolutely. So, firstly, the role of government is to incentivize good behavior and penalize bad behavior. That's the only way, the Singapores and the Londons and the Mexico cities have reversed air pollution. Of course, Beijing at the fag end of it. They're the last city to have solved or reversed about 60% of the air pollution. My fellow panelists mentioned that CO2 is the bigger problem. Yes, for climate change, CO2 is the bigger problem. But if you look at the University of Chicago study that came out recently that said that, Delhi people are losing 12 years of shortening their lifespan by 12 years and that most of India by 5.3 years. That problem is not due to CO2. That problem is due to NOx and particulates, which diesel produces more than petrol. So as far as I'm concerned, as somebody who studies and understands air pollution, diesel is certainly, firstly, it's a fossil fuel, and so is petrol. So it's not like I'm saying that, let's encourage more petrol. I think we need to find other solutions. I'm not an expert on biofuels, and I'm not certain about the efficiency of biofuels, but certainly, any form of fossil fuel, whether it's a diesel or a petrol or even CNG for that matter, these are not long-term solutions. As far as disincentivizing diesel is concerned, certainly, by making the lifespan of diesel vehicles, passenger vehicles, reducing it down to 10 years, you've already, disincentivized diesel to a large extent, and you're seeing it in your stats already. I think you said diesel sales are down from 53% to 18% or something of the order. But, as a country that we are still obsessed by this, mileage kitna deti hai, and diesel is certainly more efficient, about 15% more than petrol. But my position on this is that diesel is not the answer. Certainly petrol is also not the answer. These are all fossil fuels. They all create air pollution. They all create a current account deficit for the country. It's not good for the country. It's not good for our health. We need to do away with all fossil fuels. I'm not coming out and saying, EV is the only solution, but we got to find cleaner, greener solutions. The solutions have got to be out there.
Okay, Kishore Subramania, would you want to come in here? What's the position that you are taking? We have two opposite sides that have already been represented on the show. Mr. Sorabjee is saying, don't make diesel the villain. The diesel is not, and diesel cars are actually not the villains in this case. Sometimes they are probably more cleaner than petrol cars. On the other hand, you have someone who studies pollution very closely, Dhar Gupta. He's saying, look, diesel is doing harm. And just by the way, to quote a 2019 study that was done by the George Washington University, it tells us that 66% of all pollution deaths that have happened in India have happened because of diesel vehicles. There is a direct link to that. Just tell us where you stand on it.
Good evening to all my fellow panelists, and let me take a clear position and my understanding. I've heard both the panelists, and let me put it out clearly that the first panelist, I'm not getting his name very clearly, he was very, very clear about the fact that diesel is being made a villain unnecessary. That's my first opening remarks. But having said that, let me also tell you certain facts which many people are not considering. See, for example, the whole world, at least the common man's purview, is that seeming that we are moving from a fossil fuel to EV. But if you actually understand the net carbon footprint that EV generates in terms of the battery, the manufacturing, because every car or every vehicle has three phases to it. One is the production stage, one is the usage, and one is the scrapping. If you put all these three phases and you put the net carbon footprint that emanates, you would be surprised to know that EV actually emanates more. But these are technical points as to which emanates CO2. I'm not an expert on these subjects, so let me not come to the composition or the exact chemical percentages. But that's not the point. The bigger critical point, which 2 points. One, I agree with your first panelist who did say that, when we moved we moved 2 phases, okay? From BS2, we moved to BS4, and from BS4, we moved to BS6. When we moved to BS6, the cleanliness really happened well. So I don't think so diesel should be vilified. Number 2, having said that, I understand political compulsions at given points of time when you make these statements which sound nice, but you need to have white paper, clear research and data which backs you up. I am not trying to demean the comment or the observation made by the Honorable Minister, but I am saying we need to understand it from a passenger's point of view. Let me also tell you one more thing. There is a natural death happening as far as the diesel is concerned. From 2017 to 2022, if you look at the study, we have gone down to 7 lakhs, which was almost double at that point of time. So there is a natural death happening. At the same time, if you want a transition to happen from a fossil fuel to an electric vehicle, remember you need huge infrastructure. And let us understand this clearly. Most of the diesel vehicles that are plying are government owned. Okay, so they are bought by the government. So the car segment is a very small percentage. The buses, the commercial vehicles, and the other vehicles are where, these diesel gets into the picture. Having said that, one single statement today actually has made certain stocks stand anywhere between 2.5% to 11%. So these cannot be casual remarks. I honestly don't think this is a good statement to make without having your facts and paper ready, because the stocks have really tanked. Today, if I'm an investor, look at that.
But Mr. Subramania,
look at the common man who has put
Mr.
his money.
Subramania, the point is, this is not the
and has lost 10%.
This is not the first time that Nitin Gadkari has. This is not the first time, by the way. I mean, the whole point about pollution tax may have been novel, but this is not the first time that Nitin Gadkari has batted against diesel cars. It's certainly not the first time it has happened. Mr. Sorabjee, then I want to ask you, you're talking about the unnecessary vilification of diesel. But the point is, if the government has to push ahead with electric vehicles, and I said the goal is to have 32% of all vehicles in India as electric vehicles by the time we are in 2030, then something will have to give way. Petrol cars are not giving way, so diesel cars will have to give way. Is that why this proposal in the first place? As I said, there has been a U-turn.
No, why not petrol? Why can't petrol cars give way? Please tell me that. Can I tell you something? Firstly, all your studies are 2019. Not one study is after the new emission norms have come in place. So all you're seeing of so many people dying, and this is what causes the wrong perception. You're giving me a 2019 study when diesel, we were still in BS4.
That's the only study available.
BS6 and BS6.2. So how is that 2019 valid for a new car? Please tell me that. Because the new cars, that's a small number. Point number 1. Point number two, diesel. I'll tell you something about petrols. When they move to GDI, which is gasoline direct injection, there's a PM number which has gone up on that. We don't even have what people call a GPF, which is a gasoline particulate filter, but that no one talks about. That quietly goes into the air. So, this is the whole issue. You'll need to know the facts. The fact is, after BS6 and 6.2, the two nasty bits of diesel, which is PM 2.5 and NOx, have come down by 90%. It is on par with petrol right now. Plus, you have the added benefit of CO2 reduction. Plus, you have the added benefit of it being cheaper on the consumer's pocket to run. Plus, you have the added benefit of lower oil consumption, which we are importing. Now, if you're saying we have to move to EVs, yes, we have to move to EVs. Again, that has to be done in a calibrated way. Very well for everyone to say that, but are EVs that affordable? Do any of you all own an EV, by the way? I mean, I run one. How many of you all run an EV? Very easy to say, let's have an EV. But it's not practical today for many people. It's good as an urban car. You take it out of town. It's a nightmare. I've driven all over the country in an EV and we are not ready for it yet. We have to have a transition. That transition is happening and the government has done a fantastic job in terms of its taxation with 5% GST. I think that is superb and that alone promotes electric mobility to a great extent. So that's a great step. But I think, look, let's just get the facts right. I've studied this. I know what the issues are. And honestly, I think, we are just sometimes a lot of things are said, which, as Kishore said, sound good, sound cool. It's like moral grandstanding in a way, it is sounding great. We care for people's health. We don't want people to die from pollution. All the stats there, you've also put out, plays to that kind of narrative. Let's get the facts right. And the fact is that, there is a transition going from fossil fuel to EVs. We are on that journey. Thanks to a lot of, incentives and policies which the government has put in, we have to grant them that. Again, I said 5% GST, absolutely fantastic. So, it's going to take its time, but I feel in this transition, you can't be killing existing technologies, just by on a certain perception.
All right. Good to have you, Mr. Sorabjee, on the show. Thank you very much for joining us. You've given us depth and perspective on the issue. Did Mr. Nitin Gadkari speak out of turn? Is that why the U-turn happened, where he's saying the government is not considering any such proposal? Possibly. Kishore Subramania, thank you very much. And Dhar Gupta, thank you very much for joining us as well. On that note, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's much more coming up on the other side. The big meeting between Kim Jong-un and President Putin of Russia will be beginning anytime soon. We are keeping track of that as well, telling you what it's about. Do stay with us.